Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are. We are back in better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. A Monday in October, and things are starting to round into form. The World Series begins tomorrow. The first college football rankings are around the corner, and someone's school is waking up the echoes.
Hey!
And, of course, a full football Sunday in which a 40-year-old man continues to be the best player in the NFL. All that and a whole lot more. Good morning, Golic.
Good morning, Greeny. It was a wonderful weekend, wasn't it? Just a fantastical week.
I had no complaints because I was in the money. I know immediately where you're going. Golic won our DraftKings pool this week.
That's not what I'm talking about. I was talking about Notre Dame.
Notre Dame just beating the pants off of USC.
Me winning another DraftKings is just another weekend. It's for as much as I win. Actually, it was the first.
I think it was the first time that you were in the money the entire season.
The only person not in the money is Darius. Now, he was on Friday because his new album came out. You weren't here. And,
I see all the songs on the array over there.
Yeah, Trey was ripping both of us because Darius and I were the only two not in the money, and I got in the money, and Darius isn't. But as we said to him, you know what? You're going to be okay. The entertainment thing's working out.
The $20 a week he can somehow manage to swing. But all kidding aside, we were just saying right before the Open rolled that your team and several other factors ruined my Saturday night.
Yeah.
I had a very busy couple of days, so I cleared out the schedule. I'm sitting on the couch. I got the clicker working, and none of the things that
Three things to go to: Penn State, Michigan, Notre
Blowout.
Dame, USC,
blowout,
and the Yankees-Astros Game 7.
The Yankees failed to score a run.
I mean, I agree with this. So outside of me sitting at Notre Dame Stadium, which now with the new stadium and all these stadiums getting Wi-Fi now, and I have my big iPad that I have, I can watch the other stuff. And it was the same way. I'm like, nothing really to see here. Not a lot. Just keep watching, Notre Dame bury USC. But I wanted to be entertained somewhere else, and I wasn't. It was a bummer because I was the same as you. There were you thought there was going to be some really, really good matchups.
Yeah. Saturday night did not go the way we wanted. Sunday was very interesting. Let's go off the top to start things on this busy Monday morning. And the big star of the NFL day yesterday, among many, was Zeke Elliott, who had over 200 yards from scrimmage, Mike. So in what has been something of an up-and-down season in a variety of different ways for Zeke Elliott, he broke out against the winless Niners.
Yeah, career-high 219 scrimmage yards. It was very impressive. He now has 22 touchdowns in 21 games for Dallas, tying the most touchdowns through a player's first 21 games in the Super Bowl era. The others to do it since 1966, some names you'll know: Billy Sims, Marcus Allen, Eric Dickerson, and Edgerrin James. Third player in NFL history with multiple games of 200-plus scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns before turning 23 years old, which includes Adrian Peterson and Clinton Portis. So the main thing is those are numbers, and numbers are fine. But you're right. With all that's going on with this guy, that's the thing. You can get the facility. We always talk about the game, but even what's going on with him during the week in the hearings, you can go to the facility and you can get lost in there. That's your world in there. He can practice. As you hear Jason Garrett say, he's a professional from that standpoint. We know he has had certainly some issues outside of the facility, but all you heard inside is he works. Does his film study, works out, practices really well, and that's what he can do there. He can just let everything else go by the wayside, let other people handle it, and concentrate on what he needs to do.
And if they could play San Francisco every week, everything would be fine.
Definitely helps.
There are 2 winless teams in the NFL still with them and the Browns.
Off the top.
Also, we got some managerial stuff in the baseball. The Red Sox hired Alex Cora as their manager. That was announced yesterday. And then late in the day, the Mets found their manager as well.
Yeah, they did. Certainly, you started out with the Red Sox hiring Alex Cora. He's going to continue to be the Astros bench coach throughout the World Series. Spent 4 years here as a baseball analyst prior to serving as the bench coach, third ever Puerto Rican-born baseball manager. But he will stay during that. And the Mets are going to hire the Indians pitching coach, Mickey Callaway. Callaway spent the last 8 seasons as a pitching instructor for the Indians, last 5 as their pitching coach. So already hires being made there, but Callaway obviously can go right away since the Indians are out. But Cora, he'll have to wait and then assume all those duties after he sees if his team can knock off the Dodgers or not.
So a little spate of baseball news before we get to the World Series tomorrow. By the way, we'll have Rob Manfred live
off the top
tomorrow. The commissioner. Okay, that didn't take long.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns fired their coach yesterday.
Everything's solved right now, right? Get Earl Watson out of there. He's the problem. Earl, you're fired. We should make a run now. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, seriously? It's tied for the second fastest coaching change in NBA history.
Was that D'Antoni?
No.
How many games did D'Antoni last in L.A. that one season? That's what I was trying to remember the other day.
He's not in the top 4 here.
Okay.
The worst is Dolph Shays lasted 1 game in 71 with the Buffalo Braves. Then you have Earl Watson for the Suns with Chick Reiser from the Baltimore Bullets. Both, and that was back in 1952, 3 games, and Mike Brown with the Lakers in 2012.
That's what I was thinking of.
Mike
It was Brown.
Yeah, 5 games.
Mike Brown.
He lasted 5 games. But there you go. 3 games. This should solve it all for the Suns. I mean, talk about what did you know going into the season? I mean, seriously?
They're in a total rebuild. Eric Bledsoe is on social media saying he wants out. That's a complete mess
off the top
of a situation. Notre Dame. Hey, hold on, I have the song.
Woo!
Which is better? Is
Notre
the
Dame.
fact that Notre Dame has played its way back into let's call it what it is, has played their way back into a position where they control their own destiny to get into the college football playoff, which they did. And the other thing they did was they knocked USC and probably the entire conference, hopefully out of the conference football playoff, which was sweeter for the Notre Dame alum.
Well, boy, that's a great question because there is something to beating USC, but knowing you've ruined their season.
They're done. They couldn't afford another loss. They lost.
When Mike and Jake's senior year, they beat USC in their last game, and that gave them the last win they needed to get to the national championship game. So it's one thing to beat your rival, but then to beat them and have meaning behind it, whether bad for them or good for you. Overall, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Penn State are 3 college, obviously have great history. It's been a while since they were all relevant. Sunday's poll marks the 82nd time that Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Penn State were all ranked in the top 10 of the AP poll. But the first time since what? 1993.
Okay.
1993. So that is very cool to have Penn State, another big one against Ohio State, Notre Dame against a ranked team this week in North Carolina State.
Oh, that's a great game.
Game day chose to go to Ohio State because, of course, that's what Herb Street wanted because he went to Ohio State. Where do you go, Herbie? Way to ruin or come to Notre Dame, real school.
Where is that game this weekend? Is that game at NC State or is that Notre Dame?
Notre Dame?
It is at Notre Dame.
Yeah, game day could be at Notre Dame, but they're going to Ohio State because that's what Herbie wants.
They were already there this year, too.
Yeah, they were already there. They were just in Penn State. Penn State going to Ohio State. But, Herbie calls up, whoever he calls up, I want game day at Ohio State. I want game day at Ohio State.
Why are you laying this on Herbie? Why
I'm putting
are you
it all
of a
on
sudden
Herbie.
doing this?
All on Herbie. His fault. And his fault. I'm kidding. Not his fault. By the way, really quickly, we're going to talk about this. Josh Adams, the running back for Notre Dame, needs to be in the Heisman talk.
Oh,
dude,
all of a sudden you're interested in the Heisman.
Listen.
You who never stop ripping the Heisman, you hate the Heisman.
It's a ridiculous award, but if you're going to give it out every year, this guy deserves to be in the conversation to get this ridiculous award.
Okay.
How about that? Did I justify it?
All of a sudden, that matters. And then finally, we get to Sunday in the NFL, and listen, what Tom Brady is doing is ridiculous. I don't take back a word that I said before the season or anything. Eventually, this has to stop. It just can't keep going, but it doesn't appear to be happening anytime soon. He is right now playing the position better than anyone else. Obviously, the injury to Aaron Rodgers is a significant factor in that, but Tom Brady is the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, Hembo. I think he's on pace for 66% of completion, just over 5,000 yards. I think 34 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. It's somewhat ridiculous what he's doing. And from the game last night, since they outscored Atlanta in the Super Bowl when they were down 28-3, they basically outscored Atlanta 48-0 or something like. Since that point, it's been ridiculous. And for Atlanta, blocked field goal, missed field goal, they had a goal line stand against them. They just do not look anywhere near like the team they were last year. And all of a sudden, that defense, especially that secondary for New England, played extremely well.
And that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike, brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Upgrade to shaving with a fresh blade whenever you want for a fraction of the price price. Join DollarShaveClub.com today. The stat that you're looking for is from the time it was 28-3 Falcons in the Super Bowl, from then until now, the Patriots have outscored them 54-7. 54-7.
At one point, it was 48-0, then 54-7. Okay.
Correct, and they came back and because they were winning at one point 28-0.
To nothing, right?
Last night, 20-0.
20-0, right.
Last night, and they came back from 28-3. They wound up winning at 23-7, and again, Brady's numbers continue to be just ridiculous. But last night, in what was a real pea super in Foxborough. I mean, it was the fog and everything.
Oh, easy with the fog. I've been in a fog game. That wasn't fog last night.
Right,
okay,
comparatively,
that was a little bit of mist.
Fair enough.
All right,
compared to what you saw on the banks of
or what I didn't
Lake
see
Michigan,
Chicago at 88
in a playoff game. But one way or another, the Patriots they are rounding into form. It really is, and it reminds you that you feel like an idiot now for having said anything about them. Early in the year, I was watching them and thinking, my goodness, they look so vulnerable, and they did. And here they are a couple of weeks later. Now, the Falcons just aren't that good. The Falcons should have lost to Detroit and should have lost to Chicago. But all of that's, I mean, two of the three games that they've won. But even having said that, the Patriots are rounding into form. Their defense looks a lot better, and they ran the ball 36 times last night.
They did.
36. Forget the 162 yards. Just that they ran it 36 times. They're so balanced right now. The Patriots look like they are rounding into exactly the team we thought they were going to be.
Held the ball for about 9 minutes more than Atlanta. And when you're up 17-zip at halftime, you certainly can go to more running in game. But you normally would say that, but with the Patriots, sometimes that's not true. Sometimes they keep throwing that short pass. But they did run the ball. He threw it 29. They ran it 36, as you mentioned. No interceptions, though. He did throw the one interception, a bad pass into the end zone, but there was a roughing the passer call. Again, don't hit Tom Brady, wrong.
There were some of those all over the league yesterday.
It's just hits that look so normal now, or look so normal, are just not normal now in the NFL. And listen, I've screamed about it for years. It's not going to change. And it bums me out a little bit that some hits that just look like normal hits now. I don't mean the vicious ones. I understand they wanted the game, but I still say it's gone too far the other way, and a lot of it is on the quarterback, and some of those were yesterday, I think, including that call. But, you have to deal with it, and you have to know as a defender. I think it's tougher and tougher, but there was roughing the quarterback on that, so the interception was wiped out, so he didn't have any interceptions last night. But I look at their defense. I mean, this is supposed to be an explosive offense in Atlanta. It hasn't been as much this year, but that defense is the worst pass defense in the league going into that game. They were the worst in the league.
This was the first time they didn't give up 300 yards passing in a game.
Exactly right. And they played better. There's one thing you can expect your guys to play better, and they did. Schematically, when you're covering Julio Jones, you cover him up close. You have help over the top. You know that, so you can play it a little differently. So schematically, you can help. But the guys were playing better as well, and that's what you thought. You heard some of our former player defensive backs say there was communication issues in the backfield that they could grow into a bit. I know Rob Ninkovich came on and said it could take a while to get that chemistry, but it depends. If you're veterans and you could work things out and get communication going, physically you're a pretty good player, and when you start to play better, and they seem to be rounding into that right now. Now, by no means are they a great defense. They played really well last night. What they need now to do now is to show consistency there.
And so the Patriots, with a big win, the Falcons in the Super Bowl rematch with a chance for revenge, fall very, very short on the road on a Sunday night. Let's take a listen to what some folks had to say afterwards. Here's our Louis Riddick watching the Patriots play and very impressed with what he sees.
The system is tried and true. Okay, the players, quite honestly, were messing up the system, meaning they weren't taking what they learned in the classroom, then what they practice, and then taking it to the game. And primarily it was about communication. Mm-hmm. Less was more tonight. They lose two starters. They put in two guys who maybe not as talented, all right, in Jonathan Jones and Johnson Batamosi, who go into the game, but they do it the right way. They do it exactly the way they're taught to do it, which means being physical at the line of scrimmage, having no communication errors. They mix in a little bit more zone along with the man. And the results are exactly what they are.
So that's what you see. You see the difference from as Lewis said, from the classroom onto the field. Guys just flat out, number one, playing better, which they needed. You feel you had the talent to do that. And then schematically, Patricia is an excellent defensive coordinator, so he's going to figure it out as well. They'll all work together to figure out. You can't keep them down forever there. And they played well, again, against a team that is struggling. No doubt about it, but you got to start somewhere, and they hadn't been doing a good job, and they did last night.
What do you make of the struggling? Let's focus on that for a second.
Yeah.
This is a Falcons offense that has basically all the same pieces they had a year ago.
They do.
They got Ryan, and they got Julio, and they got Sanu, and they got Freeman, and they got Coleman, and they got all these names that you know. Now, of course, Shanahan left, and they got Sarkisian there. Can that have made that much of a difference? Is the Super Bowl hangover that real of a thing? The Patriots entered the game last night as the worst statistical defense in the NFL, and they were 30th in points allowed, 30th out of 32 teams, and they gave up 7 points. And they were pitching a shutout into the fourth quarter against the Falcons. So, Mike, did that tell you more about New England's defense or Atlanta's offense?
No, I mean, listen, well, we've been seeing that out of Atlanta. They haven't looked that good. You mentioned a couple of games that they easily could have lost. So I was waiting for the New England defense to round out into form a little bit, and that's what they're starting to do. Atlanta, I know Sanu has been nicked up. Julio Jones has been nicked up, but they were out there. You know, you're out there, you're ready to go. You know, that offensive line we talked about being solidified last year when they got Alex Mack. So they got the same running backs in Coleman and Freeman. So I'm a little surprised at what's going on. So, and you asked the question. Could an offensive coordinator, could he make that much difference? The play calling, the relationship of coach and player of Kyle Shanahan, who was the old coordinator, is now in San Francisco, and Steve Sarkisian taking over now. Could it make that much of a difference? Obviously, it's not one thing. It's a combination of things. But when something like this is going on, you're like, oh, well, they have this injury or that injury. Well, they don't. They got the guys out there. You know, something like the Packers where Aaron Rodgers is on the sideline and, you know, both the offensive tackles are missing time and you're missing guys on defense. These guys are out there. Now, Beasley had certainly missed time for them on defense, one of their best players on defense. But offensively, we're talking about 343 total yards, 7 points. I mean, that's so uncharacteristic of this offense, and if they don't have an offense that's doing this, they're not going anywhere. I mean, I felt horrible about keeping them out of the playoffs in my preseason picks. It's actually looking pretty good now the way they're going.
Well, that division is crazy because Tampa, they gave a game away yesterday in Bob. I don't want to say it that way because the Bills
are a good team.
Yeah, I mean, you fumble a kickoff on
I'm with
whatever.
You.
Tampa is a huge disappointment. How does Carolina, with 11 days to prepare for a game, go to Chicago and basically get blanked? They scored 3 points in Chicago yesterday. They lost a game. Did Mitch Trubisky, how many passes did he complete?
At one point, he was 3 of 6, and I think it was in the third quarter.
No, he only completed 4 passes. He only attempted 7 on the whole day, and they lost. They got killed.
They had the ball for about 2 minutes in that game. They had the ball for 21 minutes. Carolina had the ball for over 38 minutes in that game.
So the team that's emerging is New Orleans. New Orleans are winning games in a row like crazy. They're getting pedicures today. Did you see that story, by the way?
Yeah.
They're celebrating with pedicures. They were my kind of team.
The first, I knew you'd like that. They were the first ones to play a Aaron Rodgers-less Green Bay Packers this year. And, you know, Brett Hundley, we all knew was not going to be Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to have some growing pains with him. But New Orleans is playing well. You know, you are getting out of that offense what you think you would if the defense is going to play a little bit better. That's what we talked about, and that's what they needed. You know, the two backs, and Ingram has himself a game. Kamara, who they like, with Adrian Peterson not taking any of the carries now, not like he was getting a lot anyway. You got to like what you see there. I mean, you're really doing for sure. How about Chicago? I've never, now again, we go to the DraftKings and what we play. I have never in my life, when you got to pick a defense, I picked their defense. I don't know why. I just kind of had a good feeling about Chicago's defense.
I'm stunned that you did. I would have thought Carolina was going to roll all over them.
Chicago coming off a win, you know, going for 2 in a row. They're at home, and I thought, okay, they gave me 30. I've never seen a defense give 30 points in fantasy.
They had 2 long touchdowns.
Yeah, it was unreal, but they played well. But I'm with you about Carolina. That was stunning, and maybe even the most stunned is New Orleans sitting there atop the division.
There were 2 games yesterday that did not feature a single offensive touchdown, the Titans and the Browns, which, I mean, you could sentence felons to watching that game. It was so brutally bad. And then Panthers-Bears, which is a crazy game. Put that previous one back up there. This is amazing to me. Trubisky had 4 completions. He's the first non-injured starting quarterback to win a game with fewer than 5 completions since Tim Tebow in 2011. So, I mean, you look at it and you say, for the Bears standpoint, yeah, they won. Good news. Certainly, obviously, a couple of wins in a row, and that's good to see. It's not because they're an offensive juggernaut or anything like that. But anyway, the point of what we were saying a minute ago is The good news, if you're Atlanta, is you're not out of it yet, right? You're not out of
you're not.
The contention in that division, especially because the Bears dropped 2 touchdowns and gave you in week 1, and Golden Tate I keep saying Golden. It was Golden Tate.
It was Golden Tate. 6 inches short.
Yeah, was 6 inches short of a touchdown, and 8 seconds got taken off the clock, and they didn't get another chance to beat them. So Atlanta stays alive in that NFC South.
Think about it. You had 3 shutouts yesterday, and you had 4 other games where the losing team scored under 10 points. There's some not some.
It was a bad day, it was not a terrific day of football.
The best of Mike and Mike.
You were nodding like you knew the answer. You had seen it already.
I had known it actually before that.
Tom Brady is on pace right now to lead the National Football League in passing yards this year. At the age of 40, if he does it, he will become the oldest quarterback ever to do it. Currently, the oldest quarterback ever to lead the league in passing yards was
Warren Moon. Well, I think it was just over 3,800 yards. I believe was the.
That's not what I have, Mike. The answer to the question is not Warren Moon.
Wait, at 40 years old, I just read.
No. The oldest quarterback to lead the league in passing yards.
Oh, I thought it was 40 or older.
Not the most passing yardage by a 40-year-old quarterback. That is Warren Moon.
Right,
but the oldest quarterback to lead the league in passing yardage in a season.
I misunderstood the question. So the question that I answered correctly.
Okay, fair enough.
Warren Moon.
I'd like to hear that argument with a college professor.
I tried this I tried it with teachers a couple of times. I thought the question was different. I would like at least partial credit for this answer.
Professor, I do believe I deserve partial credit considering
right.
I answered my own question correctly.
Yes. The question I thought you were asking, I felt I answered at least partially correct.
Would you care to take a guess at the answer?
No, I don't care now. I don't even know the question anymore.
The oldest quarterback ever to lead the league in passing yardage in a single season.
I don't know.
It's Fran
Tarkenton.
It's got
to be Fran Tarkenton.
It's Fran Tarkenton in 1978. At the age of 38, Fran Tarkenton led the league in passing yards, and that remains the record to this day. And Brady may not wind up leading the league in passing yards, but I wouldn't put it past him.
But you know what he's going to do? He's going to pass Warren Moon for the most of the passing yards 40 or older.
That seems like a lock.
Woo! Right on the button, I hit that one.
I don't know what in the world is going on with that. I mean, the fact that he is 40 years old and still playing at this level, it is. We are seeing a new era. I mean, we are going to. I don't take back what I said. He's not going to do it 5 more years. There's just no way.
But I don't think he's going to do it 5 more years. I said 3 years. That was my number.
This year keeps talking about 5 more years.
I know. Yeah.
But what I will say is we are now seeing, with the changes in a variety of things, I guess, workouts and nutrition and others. Plus, I suppose I have to admit, as begrudgingly as I will, the concept of resting and other things. I think we have to reassess what we consider to be old in sports now. I mean, guys like LeBron James, who in the most athletic of our sports, is approaching an age now where we'd say, well, he's got to start hitting the backside. Maybe not. Maybe it isn't the case anymore. Maybe we're going to see these guys at their physical peak a little longer than we've been expecting.
Here's one thing I'll add to it. Kind of the way the game is right now. You look at a guy like Kobe who was playing well, and then all of a sudden, what ended up costing him? Injuries, right? You start getting injured.
He blew out his Achilles.
Yeah, you start getting injured at that age, and it's tough to recover anyway. But at that age, it's even more tough. But what's the difference now? And I'm going to say this, and I don't want it to take away what's going on. But there's 2 things: they're protecting the quarterback more than they ever have. And he's a pocket passer.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. You're not going to see that. What do you not see out of a running quarterback? A long career. He stays in the pocket. He gives himself up when all looks lost for that play to come back and fight another play. So you look at the guys that sit there and say they want to play a long time. Eli has said that. Eli, though he's certainly struggling from the position, he's a pocket guy. The guy that would be interesting to me, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, I'm now way younger. He's way younger. I sit there and say he's 33. He's 7 years younger.
He's way younger than Brady.
Than Brady. So how long can he go? Because he runs and he moves and he does things on the run. Brady doesn't. Brady keeps himself in great shape. He's a pocket guy, and they protect the quarterback more than they ever have. He's got a lot of things going for him. The most things going for him is the fact that he's the best quarterback to play. That certainly helps with the decisions he makes and winning the ball and making those smart plays. But it is impressive with what's going on with him.
As this season, certainly early part of the season, he's been getting hit a lot, though.
He has.
Is the one thing. For
he's
a
been
pocket,
sacked 18 times he's been sacked.
And hit a lot.
A lot more, yes.
So that does, you would imagine, start adding up at 40 or at any age.
Yeah. Agreed.
We'll see. Right now, he's playing as well as he ever has. We're Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Jam-packed guest list today. Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We'll look ahead of the World Series with Buster Olney coming up off the top of the hour. We got Jeff Saturday and Booger McFarland, Donovan McNabb, and James Franklin, head coach of Penn State, after the shellacking they put on Michigan, but no rest for the weary. They get Ohio State this week, and game day is going there to Golic's chagrin.
Way to go, Herbie.
All right, in a brutal day of injuries yesterday, one of them, and I don't mean to belittle a person being hurt, but one of them, one loss, was clearly a win. And I will frame the story in the following way. For the life of me, I have no idea why Jay Cutler has been the Dolphins' starting quarterback this entire season. They've been historically bad on offense, unimaginably bad on offense. And from the moment Matt Moore set foot on the field yesterday, they looked like an entirely different team. For those of you who didn't see it, the Jets were beating the Dolphins 28-14 yesterday, and the Dolphins came all the way back. And I can't prove this, but I would bet you everything I own that if Jay Cutler doesn't get hurt in that game, the Jets win.
And I wish they would have, because that was my nerd pick. I picked the Jets over Miami. So
and look, there's so many different things that happened in that game that frustrated me that I don't even want to start. But let's focus just on that here.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know Adam Gase likes Cutler, and I know that Cutler knew the system and everything else came out of retirement. But he's been awful. Their offense has been awful. They've been winning basically in spite of their offense the last couple of weeks. Yesterday, the minute Matt Moore walked on the field, and again, I don't know, Mike, you would have to tell me whether if the defense is preparing for one guy, that a new guy comes in, it changes things up, whatever it is. They were an entirely different offense with Matt Moore on the field yesterday than they were with Cutler. They look a million times better, forgetting all of the body language and everything else.
Right.
Moore is a fiery guy and all the rest of that. They're just better. So that loss was a win. Cutler's going to be out a couple of weeks. I can't see any way in the world he winds up their quarterback.
I would be stunned. Let's see how Matt Moore plays. Obviously, Matt Moore is going to get the opportunity. I mean, yesterday was 13 of 21, 188. It did have an interception in the game as well.
Fault. The interception was not his fault.
No, it was not. A couple of touchdowns as well. So I'm with you. If he plays well, there's no way. By the way, they're 4-2. The Buffalo Bills are 4-2 and New England's 5-2. So if Matt Moore is playing any kind of significant quarterback, there should be no doubt. I know, the old adage, if you don't lose your job to injury, that's been gone by the wayside for a while now, especially when, Jay Cutler was not the original guy anyway. Remember, it was Ryan Tannehill, if those that want to go all the way back. It was missing the season. That's why Cutler is even there. So I'm with you. If Matt Moore shows any kind of life for this offense, there's no way they can go back to Jay Cutler.
Ryan Clark was talking about it with SVP on SportsCenter last night.
The injury to Cutler is what for the Dolphins?
The best thing that's ever happened to the Miami Dolphins organization.
Whoa.
Period. They were undefeated. They were wrapped by Mercury, all that.
Okay.
Absolute best thing.
I'll bite. Why?
Because now you have a quarterback who's engaged, a quarterback who cares, who's efficient, who understands this team, how you want things run, and he makes plays. Listen, he threw for 188 yards today, 2 touchdowns. He brings you back into a game which your other quarterback essentially was trying to throw you out of. You have Jarvis Landry, you have Kenny Stills, you have a good running game. He's the type of quarterback you need.
One of the differences, too, you see the ball go down the field more. Jay Cutler, he has the arm to get it downfield, and we get him into trouble at times. Averaging 5.5 yards per throw, check it down, where Moore is going for 9 in the time there, 9 yards. So we'll see if that keeps up. Again, now that he's going to take over the starting role, we'll see how efficient he could be. But, I know the whole feel of the offense, and they talk about Cutler and the attitude and stuff, and certainly if you're not playing well, that can be a drain. But they were 3-2 going into the game. They were above 500, so they were right there. It's still right there for them. But it just does seem more. It just seems different with Moore out there. It does. So everyone, you said that. Ryan Clark said that. I get it. But now Moore's got to go out there and do something. Okay, he's going to have the chance in the next couple of weeks because Cutler's going to be out. So he's going to have to prove that he should be the guy. And if he does, if that offense is more efficient, there should then at that point there should not be any hesitation by Adam Gase at all to say, we're just staying with this guy.
Yeah, look, there's a reason that he's never been anyone's full-time starting quarterback. I'm not suggesting that he's going to make you forget about Tom Brady, but boy, he's a 1,000 times better than what they had going into that. And the way the Jets lost that game yesterday was so unimaginable that I have to keep reminding myself they're not good, because, I mean, they're just not a good team. They stripped it down to the studs this year. Yep. They're just trying to paste something together. And Josh McCown, did you see the interception he threw at the end of that game?
I did.
I mean, that's something that if like a rookie, if a rookie who had never played in a game before in his entire life threw that pass, you'd bench him, right? For a guy who's 70 to throw that pass yesterday was unimaginable. I mean, I'm not upset at the Jets, at the coaching staff or anyone for making the decision to try to win the game with 47 seconds left and 3 timeouts, because you have a veteran quarterback who knows the one thing you can't do in that spot is throw a pick. If it's not there, fall down and play for overtime. For him to just throw the ball up in the air like that an interception that could have been fair caught, is one of the great brain cramp moments that you've seen from a smart veteran that you'll ever see in your life. That was one of the worst plays I've ever seen.
That was a bad one. Okay, I mean, you might be over-embellishing.
No, one of the worst. Yeah. It was one of the worst. I want you to say that. I'm not going to a break until you say it. No, say it's one of the worst plays you've ever seen.
It's not one of the worst.
It is one of the worst plays you've ever seen.
It was a bad one, though. There's no doubt about it.
I'm telling you right now, it's one of the worst plays you've ever seen. You've seen some bad plays, but that was the worst one. Mike and Mike brought to you by Upside. Now save big on travel. Get a big gift card with every trip you buy. You will love Upside.com. That's Upside.com. People liked it when I ranted last week about the call, so I'll rant about this. I don't believe that they should suspend the quarterback for that. I believe that they should bring legal charges against him. I think it's not inconceivable.
But don't take him off the field, because God knows who you're putting on the field.
Well, listen, I mean, if you're putting him on, listen, whatever. That was yes, you're correct. If you're going to put Hackenberg out there, then he'll do that in the first quarter instead of with 47 seconds left, and you won't have to bother with a 14-point lead.
Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
There we are. We're going live to LaGuardia Airport shortly.
Nice.
As Buster Olney will join us. I'm told he is in the quietest place he could find at LaGuardia Airport.
Where is that?
As he makes his way, isn't he going to L.A.? How do you get to L.A. from LaGuardia? All the nonstop flights are from Kennedy. I'm almost positive. I'll get to the bottom of this.
Not going to lie, I have no idea.
I'm telling you right now. I'm
you
pretty
fly
sure
out of New York way more than I do.
All right, let's find this. You know what? In fact, I'm so curious. I'll save all my tweets and everything for a minute from now.
Okay.
We are Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. The World Series begins tomorrow. Tomorrow at this time, we'll have Rob Manfred on the program. But right now, we're pleased to welcome Buster Olney live to Mike and Mike as he gets set to fly out to Los Angeles. He's on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Buster, are you at LaGuardia?
I'm at LaGuardia right now, yeah.
And how are you getting to L.A.?
You know, there are things called connecting flights, and I'm using a connecting flight going through Detroit today to get to LAX.
But why would a man of your enormous stature be connecting when there are these delightful nonstop flights that you could be on? I don't understand this, Buster.
Maybe I'm not quite at the stature that you are, Greeny. That could be the case.
Well, I mean, I in fact, I think as a result of this conversation,
I feel we need to go to battle for Buster.
So do I.
Ridiculous you have to connect.
Although I will say this, there's a lot of good things to eat in the Detroit airport.
The Detroit airport is fantastic right now.
Anyway.
See, here's the other factor about that, too, guys. Since I'm Jose Altuve's height, okay, I don't really worry as much about you guys as whether or not you're in first class, connecting, and all that stuff, okay?
Who are you kidding? You tower over him.
All right, Buster is with us here. We'll get to the World Series stuff in a minute, but we have a lot of other stuff to start with as the other teams around the sports are to clean up some of their business, and we have a couple of managerial, well, actually more than just the two. Let's start with the two where we have a little bit of certainty now. We have the Red Sox finding their man and the Mets finding their man. Take us through those.
Yeah, the Red Sox hire Alex Cora, of course, worked with us as an analyst for years. He's now the bench coach of the Houston Astros. He'll move on to the Red Sox at the end of the World Series. Alex is someone who played in Boston. He's got experience in the Boston market, so that'll work well for him. I think the big question about him is he's never been the star of a team. He's never been the major face of a team. So it'll be interesting to see how he'll handle that high-pressure market. Mickey Callaway is going to be the next manager of the Mets. Look, it's unusual to see pitching coaches name managers, but, during the course of this process, I said to Terry Francona, the Indians manager who's worked with Mickey in recent years and just raves about him, that Mickey has a personality that seems to transcend that difference. I said to Terry, he seems much more of a position player than a lot of pitchers are. And Terry looked at me and said, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I completely agree with you. He's very structured, very organized, and I'm sure that appealed to Sandy Alderson. So he's there. And the two other, sort of the surprising situations that might loom first in Washington, Dusty Baker out. That's a shock around baseball. The ownership there has gone through a lot of managers. They'll be on their 6th and 10 years. And good luck trying to sell that job to the next person, because you're basically telling that guy, look, we're not going to pay you very much. You have to win immediately, and there's a job that has incredible pressure. And then we're all waiting to see what happens with Joe Girardi and the Yankees. I told you a few weeks ago, it wouldn't surprise me if these two sides part ways. His contract is up right now. We'll have to see how the negotiation goes.
Whoever replaces Dusty Baker, what a note. It's going to be Bryce Harper's 4th manager in the big leagues, and he turns 25. He turned 25 last week. That is amazing. But
can I ask about that? Why did that happen, Buster? Because the first thing, when I saw that news, the first thing I thought of was the press conference with the mold in the air conditioning. As ridiculous as it sounds, but that whole thing turned into such a little bit of a fiasco. But then Strasburg came out and pitched a great game, so it didn't seem to make any difference. Why did this happen in Washington?
Yeah, and it was a surprise because during the year, Mike Rizzo, the Nationals general manager, said repeatedly that he expected that Dusty would be back. They actually negotiated during the season on an extension. They didn't get it quite across the finish line. But I think this is a classic case of what have you done for me lately? And so even though the Nationals won 192 regular season games the last 2 seasons, 192, the fact that they lost in the playoffs, they had that Strasburg fiasco. I know people in the Nationals organization blame that on Dusty and his mishandling of it. Maybe all that changed the perspective of the owners. As I say, one big factor always with the Nationals owners is they do not like to pay their managers. They've had guys walk away because of the fact that they don't like to pay their managers.
So looking at the Yankees, do you think it will be more the Yankees want Joe back, Joe doesn't want to come back, or the Yankees don't really want him back and Joe wants to? And, oh, by the way, let's throw Brian Cashman in there. Isn't his deal up as well as far as whether he's going to be back or not?
Yeah, Golic, Cashman's deal is up. Now, every time that he's had a contract, it's played out like this. He gets to the end of the contract. He has a very strong relationship with the Steinbrenners, with Hal Steinbrenner, and I would expect that he's going to be back. On the Girardi thing, if I were to guess how it's going to play out, I think it's going to come down a lot to negotiation, where if Joe goes to them and says, look, I'll come back, but I want a significant raise over the $4 million that I'm making, at that point, I'm going to be really curious about the Yankees' reaction, because if they feel like internally that, look, we're not going to pay you, $6, $7, $8 million. We're not going to pay you at the top of the marketplace. At that point, I wonder if Joe will make a decision, and it'll sort of be a mutual parting of ways. It definitely felt like that this relationship had started to reach an expiration point earlier in the postseason.
I agree with you, but then the way the Yankees, the players on that team, rallied around him in that Cleveland series after the terrible game that he had on that Friday night, and it was so obvious to me and so genuine how badly the players wanted to pick up their manager. I thought that spoke volumes. And if you look at this incredibly young team that everyone acknowledges is ahead of schedule, if you're not going to pay Joe Girardi that much money, my question would be why? Why would you not be willing to pay him what the elite managers, the top-level managers in the game make? He is one.
Well, I think that's, first off, it depends on the perspective of Hal Steinbrenner, Brian Cashman, on how they assess managers. So many front offices today that are steeped in analytics don't believe that the managers make that much of a difference. That one manager making $4 million is not that much different than a manager making $2 million. And I think that this decision could hinge on that question. How do the Yankees view Joe Girardi? Do they look at him as being one of the 1 or 2 or 3 irreplaceable managers in baseball, and we got to have that guy? Or do the managerial position is one where, hey, whoever drops into this team right now with these young players is going to do pretty well.
Buster Olney live with us from LaGuardia Airport. Be on the lookout for him in the Detroit airport in about 2.5 hours. In the meantime, let's talk about Justin Verlander, who spent the beginning of this year and the entire beginning of his career in Detroit and now finds himself the star of the Houston Astros and the MVP of the ALCS on his way to the World Series. And you sent us a note saying you had a great story about Verlander.
Yeah, I talked to him the other day. This was during the games in Yankee Stadium because, of course, in Game 2, he was so phenomenal. His fastball up to 98 miles per hour. He's 7 scoreless innings in Game 6 later to help keep the Astros alive and on their way to the World Series. And I asked him that when he struggled in 2014 and his velocity was down, was he worried? And he looked at me and said, "Are you kidding?" And he told me a story about a game that he pitched in Pittsburgh on August 11th of that year. And during that season, his fastball velocity was down as low as 86 miles per hour. He'd had some injuries. And in that game in Pittsburgh, he lasted 1 inning, 40 pitches. Brad Ausmus, the manager, took him out of the game. The two of them argued, and Verlander said he went behind the dugout, and he said, "I just lost it." He started bawling because his thought was, you know what, my career as a power pitcher is over. And that's how deep into his slump that he was and how unsure he was at that time. During the off season, he looked around and talked to people about restructuring his body and how to use stretching. And the next spring, when he was on the mound for the first exhibition game, he threw a pitch that he said felt really good coming out of my hand. And as he told me this story, he said, "Look, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about that moment." When he turned around and looked at the scoreboard, it said 95 miles per hour. He said, "That's when I knew I was going to be able to come back."
Wow.
It's a great story.
Yeah, it is a great story, and now he's got a great shot with his new team, the Astros. So let's go through it. Start of the World Series tomorrow. Let's go to the 3 areas. Break them down for us. Let's start with starting pitching.
Well, the one thing to keep in mind in this series, the Dodgers, rightly so, really took advantage of being in their position as number 1 seed because when they faced the Diamondbacks pitching was all jumbled from the wild card game. Robbie Ray had to be used in relief. And the Dodgers blew through the Diamondbacks. Then they faced the Cubs, and the Cubs pitching was in complete shambles because they had to scramble to get through the Nationals in 5 games. That's not going to be the case in this series. When I talked to A.J. Hinch before Game 7 of the series between the Astros and Yankees, he said, "Look, our dream scenario is that we get through tonight without using Dallas Keuchel, without using Justin Verlander," and that's exactly how it played out. So the Astros have Keuchel lined up in Game 1, Verlander lined up in Game 2. Charlie Morton, of course, threw very well the other night for the Astros in Game 7. So I think it's kind of a pick-em in terms of starting pitching between the Dodgers and the Astros.
All right, let's go to bullpen.
Big advantage for the Dodgers. And, look, Kenley Jansen has been unbelievable. On the other hand, during the course of the American League Championship Series, a lot of questions pop up about the Astros bullpen. I do wonder if Lance McCullers' dominance out of the bullpen in Game 7 will give them the inspiration to continue to use him into that role. Guys, the other night in Game 7, he finished the game with 24 straight curveballs. He's got the best curveball in baseball, and he just kept going at the Yankee hitters with that pitch. Incredibly effective. You wonder if you'll see A.J. Hinch use McCullers in the same way that Francona used Andrew Miller last year, as being the guy who just gets you through the toughest part of the lineup and the toughest part of the game.
And then hitting?
That, too, I think is a pick-em. Now, I am going to be curious about the Astros hitters, who clearly in those games in New York, they dealt with a lot of anxiety. George Springer, Alex Bregman, Josh Reddick, they all expanded the strike zone so much. They got better in those last 2 games in Houston, but that's something they're going to have to deal with at the outset of this series. The Dodgers, on the other hand, boy, their lineup is so deep, and they have so many guys who throw out great at-bats. I will say this. Before Game 6, I was talking with Jose Altuve, and he mentioned to me, he looked at me and said, "Look, whoever wins this series is going to have an advantage over the Dodgers." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "The Yankees get through us, and then they'll have known that they came back against Cleveland. They came back against us. They're going to ride that momentum." And then he smiled. He said, "If we win today and tomorrow, then we're going to have known that we came back from the edge to beat the Yankees. We'll have been playing. We'll be on a roll." And the one thing to say about the Dodgers, they've had a great October. They have not really been tested yet. And on the other hand, the Astros will be riding their momentum going into the World Series.
All right, Buster, who wins?
I got the Astros at 7. I know the Dodgers are going to be heavily favored, but just having seen them and having seen the advantage they have with their crowd, seeing how well Verlander and Keuchel are throwing, I picked them. I think Clayton Kershaw is going to be absolutely the pivotal figure in this series. Can he go out and throw 2 dominant games and beat Keuchel in games 1 and 5?
We shall find out. And again, Buster Olney will be a huge part of ESPN Radio's coverage of the World Series, which begins tomorrow night. All right, Buster, there's a Mediterranean place in that Detroit airport that I like at the hummus plate. You will thank me, I promise.
I'll be looking for it in my 36-minute layover. Because unlike you, when you have first class and nonstop flights, I'm going to have to be running from gate to gate.
Boy, I hope you're not landing in A. You have to go to C or B or the other way around. You're going to have to hump it, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Good luck, Buster. Thank you very much. That's Robert Standuri Olney III, brought to us by Indeed.com. Post your next job opening on the world's #1 job site.
It's a great breakdown. Pitching, he's got Pick'em. Hitting, a Pick'em. Bullpen, big advantage to the Dodgers, but he's got the Astros in 7, which would mean they're winning on the road, right? So, I mean, that would be something. I saw that last year a little bit, didn't
Yeah, we saw it last year with the Cubs. And look, we had a terrific World Series last year.
Yep.
I think there's a chance for this to be a fabulous World Series as well. You know what someone said to me yesterday? The storyline of Houston doing it for the city. Remember, we had A.J. Hinch on when the Astros were playing their home games on the road and everything right after the horrible flooding and everything else. That as far as the national broadcast have been concerned, it really hasn't been as much of a storyline as you might have thought it would be.
Right.
But I think it becomes one now. Is can they bring a championship to the city? You know, after all that city has gone through, and you've got the Dodgers, who are obviously a heritage franchise, and the Astros, who a lot of people are still getting used to the fact that they're in the American League. So hopefully, it sets up to be a great World Series. We look forward to it, and you'll hear every pitch of it right here on ESPN Radio. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Back to the football here, Mike, and you mentioned Spencer Drango will be the answer to a trivia question someday, sort of the opposite of Wally Pipp or whoever. I don't remember who played third base the night that Cal Ripken sat in that Sunday night game against the Yankees anymore.
That's right.
But Spencer Drango was the guy who came in and played left tackle after 10,000-plus snaps for Joe Thomas for the Cleveland Browns. And it occurs to me, Spencer Drango sounds like the villain in a Liam Neeson movie.
It's a great name.
That's a great name.
Great name.
If I should ever be in like a thriller, write a thriller, I think that the villain is going to be named Spencer Drango.
Drango. I mean, Drango's close to Drago, of course, from Rocky IV.
Spencer Drango.
Spencer Drango is a very cool name.
By the way, Ryan Miner was the third baseman for the Orioles that night that Cal Ripken finally decided to sit down. All right, and speaking of the Browns, there are 3 unimaginably bad teams in the NFL right now. Just as you watch the games, it's hard to believe in a sport where everything is supposed to play out as equally as it does that things were this easy to see coming. But the Browns are winless, the 49ers are winless, and the Colts have only beaten those 2 teams.
Right.
And yesterday the Colts got shellacked at home by Jacksonville without Leonard Fournette. So there are some, we could talk a lot about the good teams in the NFL. There's some terrible football to watch every Sunday.
Yeah, there is. And, you thought your Jets were going to be one of those teams, and
they're not terrible.
The fight for the quarterback is going to get interesting because all of a sudden the quarterback everybody wants to fight for, it was Darnold. Who knows if he'll even come out? He is struggling.
So you saw him in person Saturday night. What did you take away?
And I saw a lot of his play this year. There are times he throws the ball, and you're like, wow, okay. Dude can throw it. Dude can wing it. Dude can put it on the money where he needs to. But he just makes some bad reads every now and then that you just kind of scratch your head about, and some bad throws. So I mean, if it's one of those where, and we've seen it time and time again because, these top quarterbacks, it's basically a 50-50 shot going in the first round, that if you like a guy enough, you'll talk yourself into it and say, the things I like about him, I can expand on him to cover up the things I don't like or that we don't see well with this guy. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but even with Rosen, who I like the way he throws, Allen, the kid from Wyoming, I do like the way they throw. Rudolph, the way he throws. Boy, they had a tough game as well. That at Texas really
and low scoring.
Absolutely right. Baker Mayfield, you like the way these guys throw and lead, and Mayfield running all over the place.
But Mayfield is not a guy who's going to be in that conversation.
Right. So you look at the guys, the throwers, and you know what? It hasn't been like, oh my gosh, boy, you get any one of those 3, it's going to be fantastic. There's questions where you're kind of going, okay. There's a number of players, if you include Mason Rudolph in the 3, that make it a foursome there, that just say, boy, there could be some depth there. But There's definitely been a lot we've seen on video and in person that I've seen where you kind of question a little bit what you're seeing.
Okay, so then just for fun, let's go through that exercise briefly here. And we're not even halfway through the season yet, so we don't know with certainty who's going to wind up down at the bottom of the standings, but we have a reasonable idea. We have a reasonable idea that the Browns and the 49ers are going to be right near the top of the draft, right? It seems inconceivable with both of them sitting at 0-7 right now that they won't be somewhere near the top of the draft. The Giants are unbelievably 1-6. So they also figure at this point to be somewhere near the top of the draft. And the Colts, who are 2-5, and again, their 2 wins are against the winless. They haven't beaten anyone who has beaten anybody else this season. So if those 4 teams, if they all wind up picking right near the top, where are the quarterbacks going? Are the Colts trading out? Are they trading out of that spot?
Oh, yeah, they're not picking a quarterback.
Okay, so
there's
they're
no
going
way.
to trade out of that spot?
They'll try desperately to trade out, yes.
Well, I don't think they'll have any trouble trading out, right? I mean, unless Darnold doesn't come, if Darnold stays in college.
And he's already said he would, before the year he's staying, but don't buy anything until after the season.
Yeah, so are the Browns going to draft a quarterback this time? This is a team that has now passed on Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson.
If you look at them right now, the way they're going, you would think they're absolutely going to draft a quarterback. They've used all 3 already. At some point, I'll say again, because Cody Kessler, they're all of a sudden not going to say Cody Kessler is the future of this team or Kevin Hogan is the future of this team. It's on Deshaun Kaiser. So at some point, Kaiser will go back in the lineup. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And can he show enough to where they say, yes, this is what we're going to ride going forward, or we're going to draft one early, and if you draft one early, put him in there, and let's see where we go.
How about the Giants?
That's the million-dollar question. 1-6 right now. Certainly, Eli has talked about playing, long, more of a time than you would think, just like Brady has. But where are they going right now? I mean, all their receivers, it's so tough to judge on this year. All their receivers are gone. Evan Ingram is completely taking advantage of the situation. He's become the main go-to guy.
They weren't winning when those guys weren't hurt.
Nope, they were not. So you wonder, is it time
and
for a change?
And they weren't scoring points when those guys weren't hurt. They weren't scoring points last year when they were winning games.
Is it time to make that move? I think maybe at the very least they draft one, but keep Eli, and kind of see where it goes, and knowing you could sit a guy for a year or two. Possibly, but I think the Giants have to think long and hard about that. Quite honestly, I think they'll be thinking long and hard about their head coach as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
there are a lot of changes that you can see coming on the horizon in the NFL. We'll see how much of it plays out over the regular season before the season even ends with regards to some of these, and the rest will take care of it.
Here's what I want to quickly say about the quarterback position and what's going on is look at the guys that are being successful early on. Now, Goff, it took him a bit. He was, only played a little bit last year, but he's really improved, right? Carson Wentz, right?
Yeah.
Playing well.
Wentz was good quickly. Okay. Now he's great.
And Deshaun Watson, who's coming out playing pretty well. Even though he threw 17 interceptions as his last year at Clemson. What do they all do in college? They all played for a while. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, Mitch Trubisky, we don't know yet. He only started 13 games. Remember, Sam Darnold came onto the scene, and all of a sudden – USC was this unbelievable locomotive last year, so now he gets a job, and there's struggle. There's a bit of a struggle going on. So you look at guys who have played for a while and have some experience of how they can pick up the NFL from experience in college. Does it matter or not? I think that comes into play. But again, you don't draft for the rookie year or the second year. You draft for 10. But boy, Wentz is certainly panning out. Goff, if Goff turns out to keep doing what he's doing, are you just fine that the rookie year you're going, oh my God, what the hell did we draft?
Of course.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
So
and he started forever. He started games as a freshman at Cal. So look, Bill Parcells always said you don't draft a quarterback who didn't play 30 games in college. And 30.
That's exactly right. And then you wait on a guy from, in all honesty, the Big 12. We don't know what Mahomes is going to give you, and Mason Rudolph is going to be that big-armed guy, even though they were kept down some this weekend of, man, what do I do with this guy that can throw the ball all over the place, but Big 12 quarterbacks rarely have success in the NFL.
The best of Mike and Mike.
This weekend really let me see again just how much I love college football. When Notre Dame had the tough year last year, and certainly when they made that run in 2012, my boys were on the team, just, when they're ranked in the excitement week in and week out, and then this game with kind of a play-in game and a play-out game between Notre Dame and SC, just the pageantry of that, to see that all unfold. And then to see, I mean, what was going on at Penn State with the whiteout. I mean, a college football atmosphere, I would take it over an NFL atmosphere any day of the week from the fan standpoint and just the atmosphere around. That was something to watch. Again, I could only have my iPad there because I was at the Notre Dame game, but to see what was going on there and to see just how much those students get involved in just what goes on at Penn State. I had the pleasure to go there a couple times. Didn't go so well when I was at Notre Dame and going there, but man, what a place when things are going well there, and they are certainly going well now.
Well, Penn State had this huge back-to-back weeks. Yeah. They took care of business against Michigan. Now they go to Ohio State, and joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line is the head coach of Penn State. James Franklin is with us. Welcome back, Coach, and congratulations. A terrific performance on Saturday night.
Hey, guys, I really appreciate you having us on.
We did watch, and we actually showed it just now a moment ago, that you told Maria after the game was over that you were only going to celebrate for an hour. So I assume that you have moved past that already and have been knee-deep in Ohio State at this point for 36 hours.
Yeah, I'm a guy that almost to a fault, I want to stay present. Everybody wants to talk about the next game, and we literally the game just ended, and we want to spend a few minutes enjoying it and celebrating it before we want to start talking about the next opponent. So the people that follow us know that that's our routine. But yeah, we watch the tape. I thought we did some really good things. We're getting better. We're growing. But as everybody knows, we got a tremendous challenge. I mean, Urban Meyer and Ohio State, and the fact that we're on the road, it's going to be a real challenge. And, got so much respect for their program and their university and their coaching staff. It's going to be a real challenge.
How long do you give the players? I know you coaches never take any time to really enjoy it. You move on. How about the players? Like, what have you kind of ingrained in them to when to turn the page?
Well, to be honest, I want everybody kind of on the same page. So the coaches, the players, everybody, I want the coaches to enjoy it. I've been to many places where the coaches are miserable. The wins become the expectation, and the losses just destroy you. So, I want everybody to celebrate the wins. We get in the locker room. It's a party. I get upset when I see people, kind of getting changed to get out of the locker room fast, because you guys know, there's no better place than what's going on in that locker room. And the rest of your life, you're trying to kind of find that again. So I want to celebrate and enjoy it. And then, we practice on Sundays around here. So we'll practice. We'll come in and watch the tape with the guys, make the corrections, then go out in the field and walk through the corrections, and then do an introduction of our next opponent, Ohio State. And then after that, it's over, and we move on. Monday's off day for our players, and coaches spend the entire day game planning, and then Tuesday's a full practice for us. So, what I tell the guys is, we do have press conference on Tuesday, and we do have this thing called a quarterback club on Wednesday, which is a group of supporters that we meet with. They're the only people that should be talking about Michigan, and everybody else has completely moved on to the next task.
Mike and James Franklin, who is with us. And I'm fascinated by that dynamic of all of this. You're dealing with extremely young people, and you're trying to make sure that everyone is working in exactly the same direction. And Nick Saban used the term rat poison a couple of weeks ago to talk about all the external conversation, particularly when things are going extraordinarily well, which they are. In your case, you have a leading Heisman candidate. You're the number 2 team in the country, a huge win against Michigan. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with all the shows like this one and every other one saying, oh, Penn State they're so good. If they win out, they'll be in the college football playoff. All that talk that Saban, again, referred to as rat poison. How do you deal with it?
Well, a couple things. I think it's harder today than ever, because in the old days you could insulate your players from it, in terms of who went to the press conference and things like that. But now with social media, it's impossible. So, last week I think was a good example. We had College Game Day here. We're appreciative of them coming, but for us, it didn't matter. Prepare. It was a whiteout game. Awesome. Doesn't matter for us. Prepare. Number 2 ranking. Doesn't matter for us. Prepare. Michigan, they beat us pretty good last year. Doesn't matter. Prepare. So, all those things are wonderful for the campus and the community and the fans. But for us, if not handled the right way, it can become a distraction. So, I made it very clear on Sunday in our team meeting that, these things are great, and our guys have earned them. It's not like I want them to stick their head in the sand and act like, they don't know. They've earned it, and I want them to appreciate it. But the reality is, if not handled the right way, it's a distraction. And I used last week as an example, how many ranked teams got upset last week because maybe they didn't handle things well. So, we just try to kind of keep a routine, what I call an SOP, a military term, standard operating procedure, and it never changes. We keep that routine, our formula, and we believe in it.
Talking to James Franklin, head coach at Penn State, and listen, we all know at Penn State what had gone on there, and the distraction's not even the right word for that, of what you had come into there. So forgetting even the on the field part of where you went 7-6, 7-6, 11-3, Pinstripe Bowl to Tax Slayer Bowl to Rose Bowl, and a lot of talk of should have been in the Final Four last year to where you are now. How about players in recruiting players after what went on at Penn State and kind of changing kind of the culture there of getting players to come to Penn State to say we're starting something over here again? Talk about that process.
Well, guys, think about it. We walked into probably one of the more challenging situations in college football history. So I couldn't be more proud of our players and coaches and staff, and we have battled. And I also make the argument, in some ways it helped us and prepared for this because, you can't listen to anything, the positive or the negative. We had to tune some things out very early on and stay focused. So I'm really proud. It's funny because I made a comment a couple of years ago and people went crazy, and I talked about negative recruiting, and everybody's like, well, why is he complaining about negative recruiting? Everybody deals with negative recruiting. But, the stuff I'm talking about is not normal. We had to deal with a lot of stuff that, most college football coaches never have to go into a home or a school and answer and things like that. So, I'm just really proud of our staff and our players and, how we handled all these things and to see where we're at now, after some really difficult and challenging things. I'm really proud. And we still got a lot of work to do. We still, have a lot of things that we want to get accomplished. And, the way we're going to do that is by, staying focused and staying present and staying focused on the task at hand, which is Ohio State. And they got a great coach and a great coaching staff and a great team. So, take 30 seconds and appreciate what you've done and move on and get focused to the next thing.
You also have a player that everyone in the country has been talking about since the Saturday night game, maybe before that even, but certainly that Saturday night game against Iowa where Saquon Barkley was just so good and the entire country took notice. We get to see him on Saturdays. You see him all the time. Tell us something we don't already know about Saquon Barkley.
Well, a couple things I'll say, guys, is look at what Michigan was doing defensively against everybody in the country. And our game plan was to get Saquon Barkley the ball in a lot of different ways, wildcat, traditional running game, passing game. Seriously, look at the stats of what Michigan was doing against everybody, and then look what we were able to do offensively, and it's because of Saquon. So I know most college coaches, you hear them talking like, he's biased. I've been doing this for 23 years. He is the best football player I've ever been around. And the thing that I would say to you guys, if you get an opportunity to meet him or come here or be around, he's a better guy. And I know everybody's saying, he's saying that because it's his player. I'm telling you, this Saquon Barkley is as special of a player and as special of a person that I've ever been around. And if you have an opportunity to get around him and be around him and see how well he's handled all this success at such an early age, is remarkable. And he sets the tone for our whole organization and how he works and how he treats people, how he's doing in school, the whole deal. So, I've been blessed to coach him. I got 2 daughters. They're blessed to be around him. He's a special guy.
It's great to hear, especially when you say someone's a better person than they are a football player, and this kid's as good as he is. Coach, we appreciate the time this morning and the 30 seconds of reliving the Michigan game before we move on to the Ohio State game. Going to be a great matchup. I'm sure you'll be prepared for it, and congrats on really what you're rebuilding there again at Penn State.
Good luck, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
The guy who actually started our whole conversation just tweeted me again. So I mentioned earlier this guy named Eric Hecker brought up an interesting question. And he tweeted us, he's a Cleveland fan. And as I told you, if you were with us, you heard me. I went on his Twitter page, and I could see he is, everything, his avatar, he's wearing an Indians jersey and everything. He lives for the Browns. And he tweeted a question. His wife is a Steelers fan. They're having a baby. What do they do? And he brings that up because I told the story of how I sat and watched my son with this crestfallen expression on his face. Golic, I wish you could have seen Stevie's face yesterday. When McCown threw that interception, I mean, Stevie, I don't know what to say. And I said to him, look, I've been living this my whole life. It doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. In case you're thinking, well, it'll get better someday. No, it won't. I'm 50 now. It hasn't gotten better. It just gets worse.
Well, I mean, I guess it's true. It doesn't matter worse or not because Ohio State, Michigan people go through this every year. What if Chris was from L.A. and a USC fan? You know, and she was a USC fan and I'm an Notre Dame fan. Both have great histories. Both Ohio State and Michigan have great histories.
Yeah.
How do you choose? And what do you do?
But the difference in Eric's example and my example is that Eric roots for the Browns, who are the nail, and his wife roots for the Steelers, who are the hammer.
Right.
USC and Notre Dame have each won a bunch of championships and had Heisman winners and all the rest of that. I'm talking about a Jets-Patriots-esque kind of rivalry here, which would just be a disaster for me. And I've got a million of them here. Like, for example, Buckeye Brad tweets, as an Ohio State fan, there's no way I could marry a Michigan fan. Now, I would say, Buckeye Brad, that it's not inconceivable that if you met your soulmate,
exactly right.
that maybe you would. But I do understand that for people for whom sports is really that important, and for many of us it is, that would be a real problem. Like if when the Jets are playing, like Stace likes Brady, but just because, you know, she thinks he's good looking.
Right.
And she likes now, it's become sort of a joke in the household. And she takes him every week on DraftKings, and it works. But if she was really a Patriot fan, like if there was really cheering going on in my house when the Jets lost to the Patriots, that would be tough to take.
See, I've never been in that position from a fan standpoint, so it's almost laughable to me that thinking who you root for could affect a relationship. If you really meet someone and fall in love with them and say, this is my soulmate, but they root for Michigan, so I can't marry them. I think it's laughable. I think it's idiot. I think it's crazy. But I'm not in that situation, so I have no idea.
Well, he tweeted, I missed you guys talking about my parenting dilemma. Here's added fuel. I lost a bet. He now has to wear Steelers gear against the Browns on 12/31.
Well, listen, if I don't know what kind of bet it was. If it was a sports bet and you're betting anything on the Browns right now, you deserve what you get.
Probably a mistake.
Right.
So we've got all of that going on. So anyway, all of the Twitter is on that topic at this point. Basically, all of the Twitter is on what you do in these kind of circumstances.
What did you tell the guy? Listen, I can't. What advice would you give him?
I can't do it. So here's the thing, okay? Here's the God's honest truth of this thing. This tragedy in my life, which is my rooting for this team that has never won and has caused me excruciating heartbreak and heartache throughout my life. And as I've said many times, there are teams that have lost longer than the Jets, but there is no team that specializes in ripping your heart out of your chest, putting it on the ground, pouring gasoline on it, setting fire to it, and then stomping on it multiple times to put it out, and then sticking it back into the gaping wound that it left behind. There is no team that specializes in that quite like the team I root for. And yet, I can't envision life any other way. Like, I don't know what it would be like to root for a team that wins. So there's a part of me that feels like I can't allow. I have to tell Eric, no, you just have to live with it. You have to live with the Browns. This is your lot in life. This is the business that we have chosen on although we didn't choose it. It was chosen for me. And in some ways, I think that it makes you it builds character to just constantly get knocked down.
But is that fair? Is that fair? What if the wife was born and raised a Steeler fan, like he's born and raised a Clear? Do you get special dibs because you're the dad?
No.
Does she not have any say in it because she's the mom? I mean, so what are you going to do? You got to do something here. You got to make a decision. Could you, until the kid gets of age to choose himself,
choose himself. You don't choose this stuff yourself.
Put both teams in front of him as he's growing up, as he or she is growing up, and then when she can or he can make a decision, let that person decide?
Once again,
I don't know.
That's almost impossible to do. Now, if you have two parents who are equally passionate about their sports teams, that's where this becomes.
And that's what we're talking. It sounds like what we're talking about here. And you've given him no answer at all. He wants parenting advice. I can't answer this because I think it's crazy, this fandom, but I love the Fanatics, but I've never been one. You got to give him an answer.
They call me lucky, tweets at me. My wife is a Colts fan. I'm a Bears fan. We bet on that Super Bowl, and our first kid came home from the hospital in a Colts onesie.
Oh.
See, this is great stuff, though. Yeah. This is what makes sports great.
Yeah.
This is why we're doing this in the first place. And yet it's heartbreaking.
It sounds like you love it.
The best of Mike and Mike.
How about dogs? So Stace put Phoebe in a Bears hat,
right, and
tweeted at me that I may have gotten the kids, but she got the dog. Where does the dog fall in the wearing of jerseys sort of thing? Like, if you're a crazy fan, I'm just going to use my own personal example of the Jets, and your wife puts the dog like in a Patriots costume for Halloween, are you trick or treating with the dog?
Sure you are.
No, you're not. You can't trick or treat with
sure
a dog.
And listen, if she got the dog and you got the kid, as far as the fandom, you won.
I agree. That's a win. Because
so that's a win. So you just take it. Don't start a problem there. All you're going to do is, magnify the problem then. Let her have the dog.
That's correct, because the dog doesn't know what's going on in the game.
No, well, we say that, though. Do we really think the dog's
I don't
know?
think the dog knows who's winning.
I
The
don't
dog
know.
knows. I think the dog, in my house at least, the dog has been conditioned to know that if that sound is coming from the television, I'm going to sit in this one spot on the couch and play this game that she likes with her tennis ball all the time. So the second I put football on, and she hears any kind of cheering, it's amazing the way dogs learn this stuff.
Yeah.
She runs right over, picks up a tennis ball, and comes over and sits in front of me, because that's what I do. I'll just sit there and throw the ball in the air, and she catches it. And she'll do that for 28 hours in a row.
The thing is that they do it for different reasons. They hear the game, so the dog, Phoebe goes over, picks up the ball, and said, I got to go give therapy to this idiot again, because this team's going to lose.
It is the only thing keeping
him sane is throwing this ball to me. I hate catching this ball all the time, but I know it keeps him sane.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I was going to get a couple of sound bites in here, but I think it's worth mentioning, Mike, the last remaining NFL holdout is going in. Dwayne Brown, according to multiple reports that I'm seeing here, is going to report to the Texans, and as you said, that's not a surprise.
Well, no, it's not, because what's worse than missing half your paycheck? Missing your entire paycheck.
Correct.
And having the season not count for you. Understand what Week 8 means is if you're in after that, the year doesn't count for you. It doesn't go toward a year counting for you.
Right.
So he has to be in now, and then obviously half your salary as well. So guys that really say, I'm really going to hold out, usually this is the point they hold out to. And he took it to about a max the players will go in this situation, and that doesn't even happen a lot.
But the point is, the rich get richer, right? The Texans are a good team.
They are.
And they've been doing it without their left tackle. Now they get their left tackle back. So
Exactly
give him
right.
2 weeks or whatever it takes to get himself into shape and playing at his best. I mean, what better friend does a rookie quarterback have than a good left tackle?
Agreed.
So that could actually be a significant story going forward. The trade that was suggested, I'd love to give it credit where it was due. Someone tweeted it at me. I'll go back and try and find it. Of a trade that might make sense. If Martavis Bryant really does want to be traded out of Pittsburgh, which there have been so many reports suggesting that now it seems impossible to believe it isn't at least a little bit true. How about the Bears? The Bears are a team that lost all their wide receivers to injury. It seems to happen to them every single year. They try and develop a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback. He managed to win a game yesterday while completing 4 passes, which is unbelievable. So how about the Bears offer something, I don't know what it would take, to Pittsburgh to try and pry Martavis Bryant out of there before the trade deadline?
Well, first and foremost, is Bryant a problem on that team where you need to get rid of him? Because if not, if you get him for 1 or 2 catches a game, they could be big ones. This guy knows how to – we've seen him in the past find the end zone. I did read about how – he's a self-made man. He had no support. Everything he's done himself. Well, he's got himself and his own issues. So, I mean, let's not get out of hand and be feeling sorry. So, look at he's self-made. He was the reason for a lot of his own issues there. But as far as a receiver going to Chicago, I get it. They have 3 receivers right now that have 20 or more catches. The leading receiver is a running back, Tariq Cohen. And then tied at 20 is Zach Miller, your tight end, and just 1 wide receiver, Kendall Wright. So they certainly could use that. I don't think there's any doubt about that. If that will ever happen, I have no idea. But they're a team that could use a wide receiver.
The trade deadline's about a week away. It was Anthony Griffin, I found the tweet, who tweeted that at me. So, Anthony, thank you for the suggestion. It's one that makes a little bit of sense. I've always thought Martavis Bryant was a really good player. Antonio Brown is so good that it makes you wonder sometimes, well, our defense is so worried about him that it leaves the other guy more open, and now they've got Bell. And so Bryant has become a decreased part of that offense. And, of course,
Schuster
he was, for those who don't know, he was suspended for an entire year for repeated marijuana violations. So that also becomes a consideration, because if he has another issue like that, you lose him. But I've always thought he was a good player, and he's still pretty young. So that's one that might make a little bit of sense if you want to bring a guy in there for Trubisky to continue to work with.
But if you're Pittsburgh, do you get rid of him? I mean, unless he's being a problem, you get rid of him?
Well, if he continues to say he wants to be traded, seems to be turning into a little bit of a situation.
I would wonder. I mean, we've heard about situations going on in that locker room a little bit. If it's a detriment, okay, but...
Well, he posted something yesterday on Instagram, then took it down.
Juju Schuster, yeah.
So I don't know if it's an issue or not inside there, but I do know if that is a consideration. He's talking about wanting to be traded. Maybe that's a place that would make sense. All right, let's finish it up with a prediction, Mike. You got Washington and Philadelphia tonight in Philly. Eagles are a 5.5-point favorite in Vegas. They are, according to our analytics, a 7-point FPI favorite, which means they have a 70% chance to win. Kirk Cousins in his career is 0-6 against opponents who are at least 3 games over 500. The Eagles are 5-1, Golic says.
I like this game in Philly. I like the way the offense is running the ball. I like the way the defense is playing right now. I still think Washington's trying to, that old find the identity thing of where are they. I do like Thompson, the running back that they starting to give the ball to and throw the ball to as well. So I like to see where that develops. Look, again, you go sit there on the line of scrimmage. Brandon Sheriff, the right guard, and Fletcher Cox, the defensive tackle. Watch that for a fun matchup amongst the big men.
I like the Eagles, too. See you tomorrow. Back here, same time, same place. Mike and Mike.